Um, but to Senator Connor, you have spent 30 years representing the state Senate district, all of it with the Democrats as the minority party. Can you tell us the three most important legislative outcomes or achievements for which you are most responsible? In other words, what would not have been achieved in Albany but for you and for your leadership? Not that you need that.
Forgot about this. I can do without it too. I've done it in this room without it many times. That's a hard one because there've been a number of them. I'm not okay. Legislative. I passed as the main sponsor what was called the New York City School Bus Safety Bill, and I'm proud of that because it saved lives. A group of mothers came to me. They had a little coalition in Greenwich Village. It wasn't my district. They said, "Senator, a little girl was killed in Greenwich Village, getting off a school bus." And I found out that unlike the rest of America and Staten Island, in the 4 boroughs, vehicles did not have to stop behind a school bus when it was loading or unloading. And I filed the bill, and I worked the bill, and I was in the minority, and the then mayor, Ed Koch, was against it. He filed against it. In fact, one of his favorite assemblymen tried to kill it on the last day. Someone Dan knows well, named Assemblyman Chuck Schumer. But I backed him off, backed the mayor's people off, and it passed both houses and became law. I'm proud of that. Saved lives. Another bill.
You have about 30 seconds.
Another bill. I was the prime sponsor of the Lower Manhattan Revitalization Act, which is responsible for preventing commercial vacancy in older office buildings in Lower Manhattan. And I couldn't explain the bill to you in 30 seconds in a week. I mean, it's a big bill, but it was important that it's an impact. Third one, and it's hard to pick. I passed 120 laws, but you know what? Once upon a time, there was a short statute of limitations for paternity suits.
30 seconds.
I put a bill in, and I extended the time for those suits to begin running when the mother turned 21. It used to be a simple 5-year statute from the time of birth, and we had 13 and 14-year-olds giving birth and not really pursuing the father.
Okay.
That extended it past majorities. There are many, many others.
Thank you.
30 years, passed a lot of bills.
Mr. Squadron, do you want to respond in any way to that? No. Okay. So let me ask a question of you, Mr. Squadron. You've spoken about your involvement in expanding funding for public transportation and putting more dollars into New York City classrooms. Can you shed some further light on that experience and what roles you played in those two activities and how significant those roles were bringing about the outcome for which you take credit?
Sure. Well, I talked about being communications director on the campaign to pass the Transportation Bond Act, the 2005 ballot initiative, and I was communications director. That was my role, and you know, it was a coalition of environmental advocates and transit advocates and organized labor and industry all coming together, and we needed to get the bill passed, and we did with over 55% of the vote. And you know, as communications director, I played a leading role in strategy and also in working with these organizations and groups that are so important in this state and so important to be able to work with effectively, to be able to marshal around a goal. And I did that. I was proud to do it, and I was very proud of the outcome. Though my role has been called into question by Senator Connor's campaign, Gene Rushinoff, who is probably the leading transit advocate in the city and the state, said that the way I've described my role there is accurate and that I did play a significant role, and I'm very proud to have done that. When I worked with the New York City Public Schools, I was part of a team that helped create the Empowerment Schools program, which is not an ideal program. It's a program that works for some schools, doesn't work as well for others. It was a small team of us, and we did a variety of issues top to bottom on creating and expanding the program, from trying to find savings in the bureaucracy that we could put into the schools to figuring out some of the ways that principals would be empowered, some of the ways they shouldn't be, I worked very, very long and hard on an educational equity program, some of which was successful, some of which became, is currently in place, and some of which isn't. So I was, and you know, I think that if you'd ask anyone who was part of that team, if I was a significant part of the team, and if I've accurately described my role as part of that team, I think they would say that I have. So I'm really proud to have worked on the major initiatives that I've worked on, to have been part of working with groups to do things that aren't easy, that aren't always popular and aren't always perfect, but really make a significant difference, even if they're sometimes risky.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I voted for that Transportation Bond Act. That's how it got on the ballot. Joan Millman voted for it too. And we campaigned for it. I went to subways and gave out literature, and I made some speeches in favor of it. I mean, hyperbole in a campaign, but to say, when you finish Anthony Weiner's campaign as a paid political operative in September, and then work for 7 weeks as a paid political operative on a bond campaign, good work, great work. But to say, where everybody else failed, I got all the money for the Second Avenue subway, a couple $2 billion, it's a little bit of a stretch. In terms of the Department of Education, I'm sure
30 seconds.
I'm sure Dan worked on a team. I know he worked there 5 or 6 months. If he got that much done in 5 or 6 months, they should have made him chancellor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Squadron, do you want to respond?
I think Gene Rushinoff is objective. He's nonpartisan, and I'm glad that he's validated what I've said on this campaign.
Okay.